Let's learn about the blood vessels and their function. Blood vessels transport blood from the lungs to the heart, from the heart to the respiring cells, from the respiring cells back to the heart, back to the lungs, and so on. The circulatory system is a closed system. Okay. Now, we have the 4 blood vessels associated with the heart. We have our pulmonary vein, we have our aorta, we have our vena cava, and we have our pulmonary artery. Okay. We have our left and right atria and ventricles. We can consider the blood vessels on the right-hand side of my diagram to be arteries. They are carrying blood away from the heart. So A for away, A for arteries. The blood vessels on this side of my diagram, we can consider them to be veins because they're taking blood into the heart. Okay, A for artery, A for away. Veins have the word in within their name, which means the blood is taken into the heart. In between the arteries and veins, we have smaller and smaller blood vessels. So this main aorta here will branch into smaller and smaller arteries to different parts of the body, and ultimately these smaller arteries will branch into arterioles, which will branch into even finer capillaries. Now, capillaries are where gas exchange will take place. Capillaries, will understand about their structure, how they become so thin, allow short diffusion pathway. Capillaries, once gas exchange has taken place, will collect together to form small veins or thin veins called venules, which will then collect together to make the main veins that will take blood back to the heart. Okay. Let's consider the structure of these veins, these capillaries, and these arteries. And we're going to kind of go in this direction as if blood is leaving the heart through the arteries. So we're going to go with arteries to capillaries, veins, back to the heart. Okay. The arteries, the space inside where blood can flow is called the lumen. And arteries have a very small lumen. Okay. The lining layer, endothelium, is 1 cell thick. The elastic layer in arteries is quite thick compared to veins. And the reason for that is recoil. When blood is pumped out of the heart under high pressure, the arteries will need to withstand that pressure a little bit, but then to recoil and go back to their original shape and structure in preparation for the next heartbeat, the next movement of blood through them. So this elastic layer is quite thick. It allows a blood vessel to recoil as the pressure of the blood moving through it does change. The muscle layer, that is the layer that can contract. And the tough outer layer is a layer that resists pressure changes. It's quite a tough layer. So blood will flow from the heart to the arteries through the arterioles, ultimately ending up in the capillaries now. Now the capillaries they have a lumen, which is relatively large for its size, although they're very small compared to arteries. The width of the capillary is about the width of a red blood cell. That just gives you an idea of how small they actually are. Okay, so if we consider a red blood cell kind of moving through here, it would probably just about fit. Okay. The capillary itself, the lining layer, is 1 cell thick. Now this is a really good idea because it means that when gases are exchanged, the diffusion pathway is actually very short. So with this being 1 cell thick, we have a very short diffusion pathway. And just to put this into context, if this were a capillary at one end. We need a short diffusion pathway for gas exchange at the alveoli. And we need a short diffusion pathway for gas exchange at the respiring cells. Okay, so just to make a note of capillaries, they are the sites of gas exchange. Gas exchange will happen in the respiring cells. Oxygen will diffuse into, carbon dioxide will diffuse out of the cell and into the blood. Now it needs to be returned back to the lungs so that it can diffuse out. The capillaries will join together to form venules. Venules will form veins. Now veins have, compared to the arteries, a large lumen. The endothelial layer is still one cell thick, and the elastic layer is less thick or thin compared to the arteries. And the reason is the amount of recoil needed is a lot less because by the time the blood has got to the veins, the pressure of the blood has reduced. So we don't need to withstand all that pressure like the arteries do. So for that reason, the veins will have a thinner elastic layer. The muscle layer can still contract. And the tough outer layer is there to resist pressure changes. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our explanation where we're comparing the structure and function of each of the blood vessels, veins, capillaries and arteries.